Hello all. So welcome back to PowerShell Titan, and today let's see about uh, measuring the object. So when we say measure object, it can be a count, it can be a sum, all those things, average. So we are going to see this, and then we also going to see some other how to select some calculated values. Okay, so those are all things, and then yesterday we started in the last session we started about the functions. Today we will be seeing all in and outs of both functions, without arguments, with arguments, with parameters, all those things. Okay, so let's first start with this measure object. So what is measure object? It is again very similar to select hyphen object, sort hyphen object. This will be measuring the output. How the select hyphen object and sort hyphen object will be just followed by the pipeline. This will be also the same thing. So now let's start with the help. I open the PowerShell and then let's get hyphen help, then measure hyphen object and hit enter. So what all the things it will be doing? It will be here. We can check minimum and then we can check the maximum. For an example, let's say we open an Excel file, okay, and then let's have some one, two, three, 1 to 3, and then let us expand here till 10. Now on the right side you see, right, right bottom corner you see the count, which is if you select all 10 it will say the count and the sum and the average, all those things, correct? So almost same thing. So whatever this information, right? And this is how the Excel does. I just want to show you how Excel, and that's exactly the same thing we are going to do, but in PowerShell. But not only for numbers, we are going to do it for some real-time objects, and then we are going to measure some kind of thing. Here there is an option also. You can other, let's say, minimum, maximum, those kind of things, right? So that is what it says here: minimum, maximum, all those things. So whenever you see measure hyphen object, remember the Excel on the right bottom corner. We see average, minimum, maximum, sum, all those things, right? That's what the measure object is actually related to. So what we are going to measure, let us try get hyphen child item. Okay. And I'm not going to type anything. Okay. I'm just going to type measure hyphen object and then hit enter. Now, I'm not giving any argument or value or anything to be measured, manually, and I'm just giving the measure object. And what it does is it will do all those things. It will count, it will average, it will sum, maximum, minimum. But when we are doing the get hyphen child item, we know that is just gonna result all the files in the particular folder. And when we do this, it is just gonna by default count something and then gonna give some value. Let's say get hyphen processes, process, and then share object, and again it is counting, right? Now this is basic thing to count it, and we also know the other things to count, right? Let's say if we wanted to count, all we need is put the object in a bracket followed by count. So that's the same thing. So what is so special about this one? Let's go with this one. Now hyphen property. Now before we are going to use a particular property, and then we are going to use that particular property to measure, right? uh, Before that I'll just explore the get hyphen member type is okay, we'll just go with property and hit enter. Now every file will have these kind of things: a directory, directory name. These are all not related to number, right? I'm just looking for something related to number, and then what I can do is length is just nothing but the bits. Just the file size in bits. Okay. Let me quickly show that. Get hyphen child items. Okay. Select hyphen object. Okay. File name, comma, length, and hit enter. You will see this, right? The file name and then what is the length. This is all in bits. So this is a number, and number is the one we can measure, right? So we cannot measure the anything else. So I think this will be the right of property to measure. So I took that. I'm gonna use it in the measure. Okay. Let's say get hyphen child item measure hyphen object, and property is length. Okay. And if you see, I just type len and then tab, it is automatically getting from the child item, and then hit enter. Now it's again showing the length as the property, and it is counting as a 52. Okay. I'll show why is that. Okay. Now let us do some, and then by default it will only do the count, and then we are going to add one by one average and maximum and minimum. Now it has 52 files, and then this is the average of the file size, and this is the sum of all the file size, and this is the maximum file. Whatever the maximum file, this is the size of it, and whatever the minimum, this is the one, and this is the length. So this is what we say, one of the calculate something, and then we take. Okay, let us try the same thing, not for child item. Let us. Okay, let me first start the transcript so that you can use this. Start transcript, and let's say 22 days. Okay, and let's quickly try the commands one by one. Get hyphen child item, get hyphen process measure object, and hit count. And then what we did is child item, and we just added the property, and it was giving only the count. And then we added all the things, minimum, maximum, and everything, and then we are able to count all of them. Now, instead of get hyphen child item, we are going to do get hyphen process. And again, measure object will be able to only measure the numbers, because some average, minimum, all those are related to numbers, right? So don't try to use a property which is actually a let's say string or any other object type. So this is particularly only for the numbers, and then calculating some numbers. Now for process, let's see what are the thing we know. Measure is just alias again. Property is CPU. Hit enter. It's checking and then counting. The CPU total count is 255, and then it is gonna. We are gonna do the sum. We are gonna take the average. We are gonna take the minimum, maximum, and then that's it, right? So I hit enter. This is what. So this is gonna help us how many number of count, we know that, and then average is average CPU utilization, and then sum is the total CPU utilization, all of them, the maximum, and then minimum, and then property. That is all about measuring. And as I said, measure is nothing but the alias for measure object. And let's now come back to the selecting calculated values. Before that, you remember, if I type 1 TB, it will give me the number, 1 MB, it will give me the exact numbers, right? So this all can be used when we are trying to measure some object, and then actually let's say let's do this get hyphen volume. Okay. What this command will do is it will go ahead and fetch all my computer drives, okay, and then it will print all the information in the MB. Okay. Now MB and GB, right? So this is something we can go ahead and then do some kind of manipulation in this, let's say size or remaining size, and then we can change it accordingly. Okay, change it as per our requirement. I'll show an example now. Let's try this one. Okay, get hyphen volume. Okay, then select. First, I'll just type everything, and then you will be able to know what exactly I'm trying to do. I'll explain this. Initially, you might get little bit worried about the format and what all things you are actually seeing. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna break it clearly. First, let me execute and then I'll show. All one single line. Then let us type get hyphen volume. Now, what is happening is get hyphen volume. I'm getting the drive letter, friendly name, file system, all those things. Here, it says size remaining and size, and I'm getting it in something in MB and something in GB and something in bits and bytes, right? But what I'm planning to, I mean, what this command will do, whatever the command we executed, I'm going to let you know what exactly that. But I'm going to also connect, it's related to hash table. If you see this hash table, okay. Before that, I'll just show the result. First thing is we are customizing the output. Customizing in the sense we are just taking the drive letter and we are changing the, at the top, what are the name, right? It says just size. We are making it as size in GB, and free space, it says size remaining, and we are saying free space in GB, and we are making everything in GB. Okay. Now there is no MB, GB, all those are confusion. It is all divided by 1 GB. Okay, and then we are getting everything in GB. Now why we need it, it is something we'll very often do, right? Very often we'll be checking whether the particular drive is full. We might be having a quota, it should be always 20% free space should be there, and in those kind of scenarios you will be actually using this particular thing. Okay, so let's say you are setting this particular script in a task manager. Every day it is go and check, let's say some 100 drives, and then check and make sure all of them have at least, while using these two you will be also calculate what is the percentage of free space, right? So if the free space is less than 20%, give a warning and send an email. Those are all things that you will be doing in a real life. Okay, so that is what we are going to try, and then let me again put it in a notepad as a script so that it will be easier for us to do it. Okay, so get hyphen volume, pipe it, and then I'm putting in a script so that it will be easier for us to understand. Okay, get volume, we know it is actually going to get it, and we know pipe, and select object also we know. Property is the drive letter we are taking. Okay, till there are three things we are actually getting from the select object. Okay, three information we are displaying. Okay, okay, hyphen property, and first property is the drive letter, which is straightforward. It is a name drive letter. Okay, where is this drive letter is coming from? Let's as you know, if I just pipe it, get hyphen member, hit enter. Now I'm looking for drive letter. Let us see. Here it is. This is the drive letter, right? That is coming straight away from the object. Now there are few other things we are going to do. Okay, in this whole thing, first I want to focus only on dollar underscore dot. Okay, this PS item, right? We are going to make it as, I mean, don't worry about what is PS item. PS item is the actual name of dollar underscore dot. Okay, so dollar underscore dot, we know it is the current thing. I mean, current object, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to do it one by one. Okay, let's say step by step. First thing, we are going to get hyphen volume, and then we are going to select the property, and we are going to only display the drive letter dollar underscore dot size, or you can just put size. Okay, and size remaining. Okay, where this drive letter is coming, I said drive letter, size remaining, everything coming directly from the this one. Okay. So we are, if you notice, first thing, this is we are going to do one by one. I finally shown what we are trying to do. Okay, this is what we are finally trying to do. But how we actually came there, that is where the calculated thing will be coming. How we are actually calculating and displaying it as per our requirement. Okay. So we are going to do that one by one. First thing, get volume, property, these three property, and hit enter. Okay. Now, while comparing to just get volume, get hyphen volume, first thing what does you notice is when we are get hyphen volume, this is all changing into MB, GB, and it is giving random things. Now I'm getting straight for only the bits. Okay. Okay. Not about GB or MB, so that I can calculate accordingly. Okay. I'm reading the raw data, raw size and raw size remaining. That's okay. That is done. And if you see the name, drive letter is there, size and remaining size, it's still the same. So we fetched whatever we require. Now, what is the second thing we are going to do? We are going to actually do some calculation. This is where actually we are going to calculate. Okay. And how we are going to calculate. First thing, you know, 1 GB means. Okay. Let me type 1 GB. It means it's actual 1 GB. Okay, if you have a size and if you divide by 1 GB, what will happen? It will go ahead and divide it and then print it in the 1 GB, right? Let me try it and then I'll show what is gonna happen. Okay. Mm, here, first thing. Okay. Let us just take only this one. Okay. What is this looks like? This is the hash table. You remember hash table, how it will look like? It will be starting with the at and then some kind of a number followed by some value. Okay, size is equal to GB. Okay, in this one, and then semicolon, and then again another key. Okay, we always talk, right, key and values, key and values. So that here we are mentioning two. One is n as a name, or let's say n. Okay, and then it is this is what we are giving the value, and this is the second one, and we are actually giving a value like this. How is that? Dollar underscore dot size divided by 1 GB. And since we are calculating something, okay, whenever we are calculating our block of script, we will be actually using this one, this curly brackets, right? So remember that. Okay, since we are actually trying to do some kind of operation within this block, We are not using any normal brackets. We are using the curly bracket. Then I'm just gonna copy it. So don't worry about N0, all those things, the format, all those things. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna divide and then I'm gonna print. Let us see what is happening. I just copy it, stage 2, and N is nothing but I'm just naming it. Here. Okay, name what I'm naming actually. Here at the very top it says size, right? But I'm going to make it as divided by 1 GB, which is I know that I'm going to divide by 1 GB. Then it will change it to GB. So make it understand, I'm going to make it as size and GB. Okay, this is something custom header name. So this N is equals to size GB and then E equals to whatever the size divided by 1 GB. Let us copy this, and again first this curly bracket starts here and ends here. There is another one curly bracket here. Okay, let us try it. Okay. It's safe to put this. I mean, before we do that, let's just copy and paste it, and let's see. So we are doing that for size and also for size remaining. We are not doing anything, just we are changing size. Whatever exactly we are doing for size, we are also doing for size remaining. And here size remaining, right, we are making this remaining and in GB because we are dividing that as well with 1 GB. Now, what is going to happen? Let us see. Okay. So first of all, it's giving an error under the GB, 1 GB, right? So first thing is I'm leaving a space. How we type 1 GB is actually there should not be any space. So that's the first error. And hit enter. I'll just show it clearly here. Now, first thing we did took this and then displayed, and second thing is all we are doing is we are trying to put it in the hash table. Hash table, it will always will be divided, all the values will be divided by semicolon. It's divided, and then we are naming this n as whatever the name, the size, and then e is whatever the calculation. Since this is the calculation, we are putting it in the brackets, curly brackets. So, and again we just copied it and pasted and changed whatever the size, we just changed it as size remaining. Okay, and then we again did the same thing. Now let us again do one more change. Okay, what is the change? In spite of remaining size, I'm gonna put it as free space. Okay, remaining size is good, but it will be easier for me to read as a free space, right? So total, I'm gonna make it as a total size and then the free space. This is the free space. I just name. The point is I can name anything. Okay, this is something in my control. Like how we can name the variable. Similarly, we can name anything here. Now let us go and execute it. Okay. Yes, sorry. I just need to change this 1 GB here. I'll delete it here right away. So to get it in the flow, let us clear the screen. This is okay. This is the first thing. and what we just did is only one thing, change the size to total size, and remaining size as a free space. Hit enter. Now again, it's all about how easy for me to make it understandable for anyone, whoever get the result. Let's say you are sending this report to, the raw report to your management. Okay, you are doing all this calculation, and if they just see this as a, let's say, size and then remaining size, and if they are not that much, it is not that easy to understand, right? So you are making the output more readable and understandable. Why it is actually 0.95? They should know it is in GB, right? So that is what we are doing it. Okay, and now we are saying it is around some 0.9 GB, and then 3.0 is free. Okay, now let's add one more thing. This is where we will be adding the format. Okay, the format is something related to regular expression. We'll be seeing the regular expression, but as of now, okay, all I'm doing is just one by one. Okay, I'll just copy this and paste it, just the same thing, and I'm going to add this one. This is what the format. Okay, this is something you don't have to change. This is the, you can just consider this kind of a constant number, okay, or a format. Okay, it is you don't have to worry how, what is this, all those things. As of now, we will take it as just like a format. Okay, and we'll just copy this here, and let us change this one. So let's first check whether it's working. The formatting, what is the format I'm trying to do? You see, it's a huge number, right? It's nearly some more than 10 digits are there, right? So similarly here, that is again not more that readable. All I wanted to make it as just 2 digits after the dot. That is all, it just happened. See, it's 508 dot just 19. 19 is converted because the 7 is more than 5, so it converted as 20. So we are just rounding it, and then it is actually will be presented in a more readable, just in dot 00 manner. Okay, so that is what this is actually going to say. So n2 will be just two numbers after the dot. Okay, and that this is a kind of defined one. Okay, let us try this. N1, N1. Now it changed to dot one, right? So it will be actually trying to convert it to full number of one based on this one. Okay, it will be just dot one. After the dot, there will be one decimal. Okay, that is what it is, this n1, n2. Okay, you can also have anything, but standard form, as you know, n2 will be perfectly correct, and will give accurate things. And let's add one more thing. What is the one more thing we wanted to, let's say, here? If it is confusing, again I'll put it in three things: one, two, and then three. Okay, and then I'm gonna add one more here, comma, the same format. I just copy and then paste it, and n is here. I'm gonna create something new, not free space or anything. I'm gonna make it as percentage or available quota percentage in percentage. And how is that gonna be? Since it is percentage, I don't need all these formatting. Okay. And how do we calculate the percentage? Whatever the remaining size divided by total size into 100, right? So that is what, and then I'm gonna copy and paste it. Okay. Okay, here it says this is again something I typed on the fly. Okay, available quota and percentage is what, and I'm calculating whatever the remaining size divided by the total size and into 100. Okay, it is again 40 dot. It is a huge number, so I'm thinking it will be easy, good if I add the formatting. So I'm just gonna add the formatting again for here as well. Okay, and followed by formatting. That's it. Let's try it. Here we go. So let's, for a change, let's only make this percentage as and 0. It will clear give exact percentage: 41%, 12%, 64%. This is the available quota, right? Here 12 and 16 is, I mean, all these things are less than my quota limit. Let's say 20 is my quota limit, and if it is less than that, I'll be actually making it as I'll be actually sending a warning. Okay, so if I want, I can add one more column. I can say whether it is yes or no, whether it is within the limit or not. But again, you get the idea, right? This is what the whole idea is. Okay, I'll explain. I'll just break this again. Okay, and then I'll make it clear. Okay, since it is looking huge, I'll just break it. First we are doing is get hyphen volume and piping it to select object, and we are taking three objects. One is drive letter, another one is total size, and another one is free size, and final is the percentage. Now all these three things are having n equals and e equals, and this is actually a format. Okay, this is what the n should not be renamed. Okay, I'll say you why. Okay, but whenever we are using the measure object, and whenever we are using some calculated values, okay, we are talking currently we are talking about the calculated values, right? So whenever we are using this, n stands for name actually. Okay, n is actually a name, and e is equals to expression. So name is what the name I'm actually doing. Okay, let us try this. Okay, just and name, and let us try expression, and copy and paste. I made it as name and expression, but still it is working, right? So because n is just an alias sort of thing. Okay, and n stands for name, E stands for expression. Means N is the name of that particular, whatever the column name or the header name you want to give, that is the N. E stands for the expression. Expression is the calculation. This is where the calculation. Whenever you are starting the expression, it should start with the curly brackets, end with curly brackets, and you don't need any other things. Okay, all these things, since we are actually using this formatting. Hyphen f is format. Okay, it is just the shortcut for format. Keep it hyphen f, and then whenever you need, just keep it. Even I don't remember this actually. Okay, I'll be keeping in my frequently asked scripts, all those things. so that I'll be having this as a reference. Instead of I keep this as a remembrance. If I understand this, what is this n? If I want to make it as 0, I know what will happen n1, what will happen 2, what will happen, all those things, right? So similarly, hyphen f stands for format, and this is what the key dollar underscore dot size, and 1 GB is the, we know 1 GB is just the number from PowerShell. This is also PowerShell, and this is the way to calculate the percentage. So again, all these things, E for expression, N for name, N for name. This is how we will be actually taking something, okay? What all the things we are doing, let's say we are gonna segregate get hyphen volume, okay? And this one. What is the difference between? First thing, what we are achieving is custom header or column name, okay, means this is all something coming directly from the object, and sometimes the object names will be not that easy to understand and readable or understandable for end user. Okay, so this is, if you are a PowerShell admin and you will understand, but if you are sending the script to somebody who is just an end user, and you want to actually display this in front of your management, and then you want to show this result, and in that case you wanted to change this size or all these technical words to non-technical, easy to understand. So first thing what we are doing is we are changing it as per the custom header column name as per our convenient. That's the first thing happening. What's the second thing? We are actually cutting down and we are choosing as per our requirement, choosing only the fields or properties what we need instead of the default one, right? So that's the second thing is happening. Okay, what's the third thing? Third thing, we are actually in spite of, I mean, if we write a code, okay, we can do all these things by writing a simple script. Maybe it might take some 25 lines. If we put it very cleanly, we can also do that, okay. But this will actually show you how expert you are in PowerShell. Let's say if somebody is asking you to do this, and I mean, you know this, and for the first time, you might be getting confused. If you just understand how exactly it works, okay. Now, for the first time, when you see this, all looks very weird and different, right? But now you know it's actually following the same pattern. Starts with the and then I mean at symbol, and then followed by this one curly brackets, and ends with curly brackets. There is a semicolon at the at the middle, and it just n for name. Either you can type n and then expression. It is the hash table. So no, if you type the key, you need to also type the value. It can be in double quotes. Okay, the name is something a string, so you are putting in a single quotes or a double quotes. Expression is something. This is where you are going to calculate. All these things are not required, okay. Anything is not required. Whenever you are putting expression, all you need is just two things. One is two brackets, curly brackets, okay. That is how we actually started, if you remember, okay. And we just dollar underscore dot size, you know what is dollar underscore dot size, divided by 1 GB. This is what we actually started, okay. Here you remember, we just started with this, okay. And since this that is all we need, okay. Now I mean, once we start just followed by expression, we are just putting this format, all those are fancy stuff, okay. That is something, again, not, you don't have to remember. All you need to remember is only one thing, just this particular one, okay. And you can just keep repeating, and then you can change it accordingly, or that is the same thing, keep repeating here. Let us say, here, here, and here. All these places, it's actually repeating the same thing, right? It is the same thing, keep on repeating. Okay, so even though it looks all three different things, it's all just simple hash table, and the n should not be changed. Either it should be n or name. E should not be changed. Either it should be e or expression. Okay, and this should not be also changed. 0:n number can be changed, 1 or 2. By default you can go with 2. Okay, and $_ you know that. So what we are doing is we are actually making readable, easy to understand, more readable output. And finally, we also do complex calculation in one single hash table, and we display the value right there. So we achieve almost 5 things. Okay, so imagine if you just run this command just like that, and then you are showing this clean output, okay, in your company while you are doing a demo or anything, and you are not even looking for any help or anything, and then you are typing it. Obviously, you will be having a recap before you go to your meeting, but so that you can not forget. But since you know the concepts and how it works, even though there is something missing, you remember I'm making a mistake, 1 space GB, right? I got an error and I didn't worry. I know what is the error. I'm fixing it, right? Similarly, you will be there, and whatever the impression management, it's going to be most high impact about your PowerShell expertise. So that's the whole point about doing all these things. But again, as I said, we can do all these things with 25 to 30 lines of script as well. Okay. So that is what we want to cover about get measuring things, and then selecting calculated value is nothing but like this one. Okay, and here if you notice, I said this one. We were keep on always we know $_ is equals to current object. Okay, and another name for us PS item. Okay, dot. This $_, right? And this underscore can be also replaced by PS item. That is again not required. I never use PS item. I always keep, they both are same. All these three things are same. Okay. So this, in this example, it is coming PS item, right? PS item is nothing but $_ dot. So far we were covering about measuring object and calculating things, and then how to print calculated values and what all the benefits we are getting, all those things. And then once done, we thought we'll be starting with functions. So that is where we are. So currently we are going to start with functions and explore all the functionalities of functions. Okay. All right. Okay. So just give me a minute. Okay. So yesterday we were seeing about functions, right? In the last session we were seeing about functions, and function is again, it's a block of scripts, and it's called by name, and it can have arguments, and it's reusable, and it makes script more readable and easy to understand. So these are all the things we have seen in the previous session, and we also started seeing how to declare. So let's start with how to declare. So declaring a function is just starting with function. This is the keyword, and followed by the function name, and the function name will be following the same the syntax of how we declare any, let's say, a command or a variable. Okay, so it can be let's say get hyphen function, or get hyphen print hyphen output, that kind of format, or it can be a variable. Let's say In variable we will be mentioning underscore, let's say value underscore output underscore, so we'll be using underscore, right? So that's the same kind of syntax we'll be using the function name as well. And there is no dollar symbol or anything. Okay, so function is a keyword followed by the function name. It can be any name, and then we will be always, as suggested, always try to give us some simple valuable name, and then followed by some kind of scripts. This is where we'll be actually writing the script. And yesterday what we were seeing is that that can be, function is not only a property of a script, it is also a property of a, let's say, function can also be declared here as well in the console as well. Let's say print, yesterday I think we have seen, right, print a line, and followed by right hyphen host, and print a line will be doing this. Here, this is something where we will be actually sending some parameters. Since we are not sending here, I mean, this is always should be here. Okay, followed by function name, there will be a function, and then here we'll be actually passing arguments that is also called parameters. Okay, and we will be seeing that one by one. Okay, and it can be empty as well. There is no need we should pass an argument, all those things. So first thing is we know how to declare an empty one. Okay, let's start with a notepad. Let's do function. Function name is, let's say, print something awesome, and let's say this is gonna print something kind of something like this, right hyphen host, and it is gonna print this background. Just copy it, paste, right hyphen host hyphen background color is yellow, foreground is red. Right hyphen host some sample text. Let's, okay, and then again let us save this as function 1.ps1 and save it. Here function is a keyword followed by something, some name, and then there is no argument or anything, and followed by this particular curly bracket, and then we are doing something. Now I save it. I'm going to run this. Okay, I just declared it. I'm going to run this. Okay, let us see how to run. Just call. Okay, here I'm in that, let's say function 1, and I hit enter, nothing happens, right? The reason is, even though we declare here, okay, unless until we actually call it, okay, it's just like declaring. Okay, this is called declaring a function, and unless until we actually utilize it by calling it, calling a function is just by using the name. How we are calling the function here, print a line, is how we are calling. Similarly, we need to call it with the function name. Let's just copy and paste and save it, and then now let's try to run it again. Here we go. Maybe I'll put it this as well in some background color. and then this is what, let's say I want to do something, and then whenever I'm done with something, I want to print this so that I clearly know that particular task is completed or something. Okay, let's say instead of some sample task is completed, so that will make sense. So that is, so in spite of I every time I do this again and again and type it to increase the number of lines, I'll be using this one single word, and again it will make something sensible name so that people will understand what is it for, and it will make it more readable. So that's a simple way. So what are the things we declare, and without calling it will not work. And we are going to do one more thing. I just cut and paste it here, and then I'm going to run it again. Function. Now what is happening is it's all in the same script, okay, and the function is actually declared. But when I try to call the function here before I declare, I mean before it is actually declared, okay, if I try to call in other languages, okay, in other programming languages, this is possible. Actually, you can declare the function anywhere, and there is something called compilation. We will be compiling the program. What that will do is it will align things, and then do a lot of things actually. But as of now, for a simple thing, it will just align things. This print something, the compiler will know, okay, this is a function, it is called in this particular line, so it will know it. If I call this, it should actually call it. But here what we are doing here is, what we are not using a programming script or programming language. We are actually a scripting language. As I said, what is a scripting language? It is just gonna execute line by line. Okay, and if any error, if if any error, it will throw an error, and then it will try to continue to the next line. Okay, this is what the as I said, scripting is consider this as I said, list of instructions. Okay, or in, let's say, in a movies, or you're giving it to some administrator commands, all those things. Okay, that is all. You are giving a list of commands, right? So list of instruction or list of commands, nothing else. So that is why there is no compiling process. If you don't know what is compiling is just like preparing the script. Okay, so that is not going to happen whenever you are running. Even though you run a script for 1,000 times, every time it will be running, it will be starting from the line one. It will just go ahead and do it everything for the first time. If it is other programming language like C and Java, it will compile it, and then it will keep that compiled program, and then it will run it. That will save you a lot of time. Okay, again, you don't have to worry all those things. The takeaway here is it will be executed line by line, and if we declare this only before calling, then only it will work. Otherwise it will say that particular command is not recognized, because PowerShell will not know what is it. So that is the first thing, and without calling it will not work. Okay. Now let us save as function 2.ps1. What is the second thing we are going to do? We seen without argument how we call, and let us see what can be passed within this parameter. Okay, we can pass some parameter or some argument, so this will actually do something. So for an example, when we are writing host, let's say write host, we are sending some information, right? This is some information, this is some information. Right host is actually a command. We are sending all these values, right? Foreground color should be red, and background, I mean, foreground should be red, background should be white, and I want to print this, all those things, right? And how this right host understands this. Similarly, we can also make our function more effective by adding arguments. Okay, so I'm going to add an argument. First, I'm going to make it as let's say result. Let's say, okay, this is the result, and in spite of I print task is completed, I'm going to type result. And here, how I'm going to call is just leave a space and type result is task is completed, sending to function to print the result. So whatever the string, right? This is what will be sent as a argument or a value. This will be passed. The technical word is pass. Okay, will be passed to function. This value will be passed as an argument to the function, and that this dollar result is the variable this particular value will be assigned to. So it is very similar to this one. Okay, what will happen is result is equals to whatever we are sending this will be assigned here. Okay, so that is what will happen when we are doing this. Now we are trying to print, and let us see what's happening when we do this function 2. Now it is, even though we put it result, okay, the result is actually coming from here. So what is the use of it? In the previous example, if I just call it print uh, print something awesome and it is empty and I'm not sending anything, and here I'm printing let's say task is completed. If I call 1,000 times, it is going to print the same thing, task is completed, task is completed. So why we need to send the parameter, send parameters and arguments are almost the same thing. Okay, there is no difference. Why we are sending argument is customize the functions result. Okay, so customize the function as per whatever the value passed according to the value passed while calling the function. This is what the whole purpose of parameter and argument. That is the first thing we have seen. Now, this is the first thing. Let me try one more thing. Print something awesome, and task is completed, right? In spite of that, we learned function with parameter sending to function. This one. Okay. Now I'm going to execute it. Function 2. What's happening? I write only one function, but I'm calling it for whatever I need. I'm first sending this, task is completed. I'm also sending something else that will also assigned as a result, and then it will print here. That is what happening. So that's the whole point of parameter. Now, this is something we are sending as a string, right? So let us create another one. Save as. We have one thing is we are sending string, another thing is only we are sending only one thing, and we are actually printing. What if we are doing some kind of calculation using it? Save as function 3 dot ps1, and what we are going to do, we are going to result add two numbers and other arithmetics. Okay, so let's say we are going to pass a comma dollar b, or let's say number 1 number 2. Okay, and the first thing is sum is equal to number 1 plus number 2. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to print the sum. Sum is a sum of the this is what we want to print. Okay, that is sum. Okay, so what is going to happen, I'm going to first change this print something awesome to do some math. Okay, I changed it, and then I'm also going to change it here. Okay, and here we are, in spite of result, we are passing two numbers. Okay, for, and I don't have to mention or anything, I'm just going to pass 10 and 20, and then I'm going to save it, and then let's try to run it. Function 3. So what is happening, it is doing some mathematics. Okay, it is actually taking two numbers, and it is actually trying to add, and finally let's try, maybe is that because we are putting in double quotes, let's try it. It's still giving 10 plus 20. It's considered these two as a string. Okay, that is what the whole point. Okay, I'm sending two numbers. Instead of adding those two numbers, it is actually just let's type, check these things. Okay, number 1 dot, sorry, just give me a minute, pay close attention because we are going to introduce one more thing. Okay, dot get type, dot get type will get the data type, right? And sum is also get type. And saving it, I'm gonna run function 3. Let me clear the screen. Function 3. First thing is okay. Let's write it. Okay, write hyphen host number 1 type is this one. Number 2 type is this one. Okay, and sum type is this one. Now let's do it again. Hit enter. First, it's checking number 1 type. It's a system object, it says. Okay, it's neither string or neither integer or anything. Okay, you cannot call a null valued expression where it says in the number 2 it says num. Okay, okay, first thing is, okay, first mistake I'm doing here is I'm calling this 10 comma 20. Okay, I'm just making it as 10 space 20. Okay, and then that's the only thing I'm changing, and see what is gonna do. Now here first, this is all changed, object, everything. Okay, everything is object is considered. Okay, the point is we will try to call it with comma or colon. Sometimes let's say people we also call it like this. Okay, if I call again, let's do this. Okay, it will be all wrong ways, or it will not work. First of all, okay, should not call. All you need to do is how we call right hyphen host. Right hyphen host is a, let's say, function, okay, or even though we say it is a command, let's say consider that as a function followed by some value, leave a space, followed by another value, leave a space, and then value, space and space, right? Similarly, that is how we need to call if it is more than one. Okay, so we don't need brackets, all those things. All we need is just a one space. That will take care of everything. And then again, to run, here it is system 32 integer, all those things. Now I said I'm going to introduce one thing, right? Some Yesterday, in the Q&A session, we were talking about how to declare integer or a particular one. So let's say I'm sending it as a 10 as a string, 20 as a string. If we put it in double quotes, right? Now let me try. Still, it will be converting it to string integer, okay, and then converting it here. Even though this 10 is double quotes, it is a string. It will receive, okay, here it will receive, because I'm putting this square bracket and integer means this number one is explicitly declared as an integer. Whatever the value is passed inside will be try. PowerShell will try its best to convert to integer, so that we are doing some arithmetic operations, right? So I want to make sure that whatever it is sending, it is changed to as per my requirement. So it is always good idea to make sure you put it integer or a string. Depends on your, it can also be string or anything, okay? So depends on that. It is not mandatory, but it's a good practice, okay? So that is the function 3, and then let us save it as 4, function 4 dot ps1, so that we can see what is the other thing we can do. Now I'm gonna do the same thing, okay? Before that, let's try this. I'm gonna copy this, paste it here, okay? And then I'm gonna type right hyphen post number 1 plus number 2. Okay, it'll just print it, but just want to show you something. Now do some maths, and then I'm sending 200 and 300 comma, leave a space and then 300. It's actually considering it as right host will be considering all these as just let's say it will convert as a string, and then string concatenation is happening, okay? Not addition is happening. How to change it? Pretty simple. C is equal to this one, and then right hyphen host. Now let's see. Now you will be getting the value as C. Okay, so that is the right host, and this is just a concatenation. This will be the actual arithmetic. Now why I declared here in spite of there, because I want to show this. Do some maths, and I leave a space, and I put a hyphen and press tab. You see this number 1 is coming automatically, and then I leave a space and then put 1000 or something, and then I put another hyphen number 2, and then I can put another 2000, and hit enter. I'll be getting the value. So this is also another way to call it. So whatever we are doing here, right, that is exactly happening, okay? It's calling number 1 in the first position, number 2 in second position. Let's try it now. Function 3, is it function 3 or function 4? Function 4. Function 4. Now it's taking 30 because first we are sending these two and then we are sending these two and then it is printing. Okay, so that is another way to call the function. Now let us try one more thing. The thing is okay, so what are the things we are seeing? Simple function with parameters and the parameter whatever we just consider, and how to call it directly, and with the parameter name itself we just seen, and we are going to see the default value. So what is default value? Let us say we are going to save it as function 5. Okay, and I'm just make I'll remove this int, all those things. Maybe for few people it might be confusing, so let's make it as simple as possible. So adding two numbers and then writing host, even these are all the things not required, and get type is also not required. We made the point why what is exactly happening. So we are doing is we are adding two numbers and then we are printing it, and then we actually calling it. This is the function 5. Now let's say in some scenarios, okay, I let us say I'm doing something called, let's say this is the domain name. Okay, let's say dollar domain name. Okay, and if I'm writing the script for my domain name, I know what is my domain name is. Okay, let's say PowerShellTitans.com is my domain name. This is something will not change. Okay, now this is something not related to arithmetic, but I'm just gonna show you. Okay, write hyphen host domain name is dollar domain name. Okay, and what I'm doing here is, since I know this domain name will be by default my name, I mean my whatever the domain name I am running this command, I'm giving some default value. This is called default value for a particular parameter. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna call again. Okay. Let's see whether I'm not here. We are not passing the third value, the domain name in anywhere. Okay. So let us try to run and then let's see what's happening. Function 5 and hit enter. You see the domain name PowerShell Titans default value is getting printed. Okay, so if that is the case, why we need it? Let's say we need it to be changed for some reason. Okay, let's say 2030 and the domain name is itbank.com. Now what will this happen is, what if nothing is sent, this will be taken as a default value. If we are sending something, then that will be considered as the overriding value. And now you see the third one here. In the third one we are actually passing itbigbank.com as the domain name, and it will be overriding the PowerShellTitan.com. Can also be like this. Let hyphen domain name and leave a space. It can be leadplans.com. Okay. Again, it's simple, the same formula. How we know hyphen number one will call this one, hyphen number two will call this, hyphen domain name will call this. Now let us try this. Function 5. So first two, we are not passing anything, but since we declared something here by default value, it is actually printing PowerShell Titans, PowerShell Titans. But in the third one, we are overriding just by calling the name and fourth one, we are actually calling the domain name and then actually another domain name. So that's how we will be sending or setting something default value. Why this is important is, uh, let's say some functions, if some value is missing, the function will complete function will not work. So we don't want that to let's say it's a mandatory field, okay. And if at all customer or the client whoever is try or the end user whoever is trying to do it, if they are missing it by by mistake, still it will be taken from the default, so that it will not crash the function, and it will give some kind of expected value. So that is the whole idea of giving the default one. Okay. Now that's what we are seeing, and default value. Now, so far, what all the things we are doing is we are doing all these things here, right? And let's say we have only one, two, three. In the three itself, it is actually looking little bit complicated. So what is the other way to do it? Okay, we can declare all these parameters within the script itself. So that we are gonna see as the next script. I'm going to remove, and let us say how do okay, first thing here, we are not doing param or anything, we are just simply declaring the variable name. But when it comes to within the script, I mean within the block, this is what it should be actually. Okay, first thing is param, okay, and followed by then whatever the variable name, number one, comma number two, and comma number three. Okay, and I'll be removing this from here, and file save as we already saved it, right? Let's try to run, and I'll show what is going to happen. Okay, so first what is happening is these two numbers. Okay, you remember we are doing a sum, we are printing the sum. Okay, but still the sum is actually taken into let's say here. First, whatever we are in the previous example, we were mentioning this as an integer and integer, all those things, right? So what is happening, even though we pass it as string, it will be converted into integer, and then it will be changed. But since now we are not mentioning anything here, it's I mean integer or string or anything, it is actually going to take it as whatever we are passing. Here we are passing as a string, it's going to take it as a string. If we put one string and another string and put a plus symbol, it will just do a string concatenation. Okay, and then it is actually printing 10 and another 20, like 1020. Okay, and in the second one, we are actually passing the numbers 1000 and 2000, and it is actually doing a plus. Okay, so this is kind of whatever based on whatever I am sending, it is doing. And you remember in the previous example, it is printing the domain name even though I don't send, but it is not doing it here. So I'm gonna do, let's say domain name is est.com, PowerShell Titan.com. Let us try this. Now PowerShell Titan.com is there, and then if it is overridden, it will be there. Okay. Now I wanted to let us change this to integer. This is just to make this work. Okay, in spite of doing concatenation, I want to make it work only like the numbers. Hit enter. Now even though we send it as a 10 20 as a string, it will be converted as a 30 because we are mentioning integer. And we can also mention just for to look good and then easy for you, I mean, look readable. We are just making that as also a string. We know the domain name is a string, right? So that's one. Now again execute it, nothing will be changing, but this is for just for our usage. Okay, now that is one thing. So that is how you will be instead of doing here. Okay, you can do all those things. The only thing you need to do is parameter and followed by this should be here. Okay, everything else will be whatever you just put it here. Okay, so that is what we will be doing in the parameter. And we can also mention few things about the parameter. Okay, let's say I'm adding few things. Okay, this is what I'm going to add. This is parameter 1, this is parameter 2, and this is parameter 3. Position is, like these are all the arguments, right? It will start with 1, how the array will be starting, right? Similarly, this is the parameter. We are just giving more details. Okay, let's say I want this some particular number to be mandatory. Okay, uh, okay, I'll do one. Okay, we can make it here, still here. First thing is we are making something mandatory. Okay, and this is not mandatory because for one reason. Because we are giving the value, so that it is not mandatory for the user to do it, but we are making these two as mandatory so that it will work. Okay, before we make it as mandatory true, I'm going to make it as false. Okay, and I'll show you what is going to happen. I'm going to make both of them false. Means these two parameters are not mandatory. Okay, now let's add one more thing. I'm just calling do maths. Okay, let's see what is going to happen. I'm calling that as the first as well as last. I'm not giving any value at all. Okay, I'm calling just as it is, but even though it has parameters, let's see what's going to happen. Yes, this function 6. Okay, hit enter. Now you see the first one here. Okay, and this one are same identical, right? Means we are not passing any A or B. I mean the number 1 or number 2. It's taking 0 as a default. I mean nothing is passed, so it's taking as a 0, because if there is no value, by default is 0, and it is adding something and then it is making some value. So what we are doing is we are making the number 1 and number 2 as not mandatory. It is function will still work properly, and then it will print, and then it will go ahead and work fine. Now the only change I'm going to do is, first thing, I'm going to make this as mandatory. Okay, only the first one as mandatory, and I'm going to run it. Okay, do you see it's actually prompting you to type the number 1 value? Means you are missing that, and it's asking you to type it. Now the first, this function prompted, we typed 1000. Okay, and then it print 100, and then it added, and then it printed. It's prompting again for the second one because there is one more at the end, right? So here I'm going to type 200. It will take 200, but again still the second number is still not mandatory, so it's taking that. It is like we are making the function more granular and then more in control of our in our control. Okay, We can make parameters mandatory, not mandatory, integer, string, by default value, all can be done. Okay, that is what the whole point is. And I'm also making this as well true. Okay, and if I run, it will ask for the number 1 and number 2, then only it will execute, and it will ask 3 and 4, this then only it will execute. I'll show something very similar to this. Okay, uh, get hyphen event log, okay, and hit enter. This will not execute unless until I give the log name, because there are multiple log names, so it will be waiting for me. It means this log name is a mandatory field for this particular command. Now it will go and let's say I made a log name. Here we go. So how it's actually prompting, that is exactly we are actually achieving here. Without user gives some value, okay, it will not execute. So that is how we can make things happen using functions. So how do we do it? First, we didn't do anything. We just put number 1, number 2, whatever we declared here, we just did that. And then we slowly made it only integer, and then we add mandatory, all those things. Okay. And also we can, let's say, what are all the other things? Okay, I think this will be a bit confusing at this time, but function is something we will be using very common once you start doing advanced level of function. I mean, you already started function, right? So the last part one I wanted to display is about the returning. Say, what is returning? Let's say I want this to be do some kind of let's say some kind of operation. I want this to be return something for me. Okay, means I can assign this to some other variable. Okay, let's do to add two numbers, right? Let's make it as multiply two numbers. Okay, and this is mandatory. This is all. I'll take all these things so that you can see only focus on. And there is no comma in the last parameter, so make sure if you are moving this, there is no comma. Now, in spite of this, I'm going to make it as star, and sum I'm going to make it as multiply. Okay, it is going to print, right? This is actually going to print. First we'll check whether it is printing, and then we will be doing the return. Now do some maths. I'm going to call it now function 7. So what is first happening? Do maths. Since I'm making none of them or mandatory or anything, this function is kind of very easy function. So it will take nothing, and then it will just return nothing. Okay. And then I'm sending 10 and 20. It is actually multiplying and then giving. I'm sending hyphen number 1 and number 2. These are all the other ways to call. So that's what I'm focusing here. Now, I want, in spite of printing this, okay, I want this to be returned to some number. I mean, return this value to me. In spite of printing somewhere, I want to do some calculation and return whether the final value from the function. So how do I return? Return whatever the value I want to return. Let's say sum is what I want to return. Okay. Now, let's, I'm not doing anything. I made this as a comment, and then I'm adding this, and then let's execute it again. What is happening? It's not printing first of all, and it is actually returning the value only, correct? So that is what the return will be doing. And again, we are actually printing here. So in spite of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it to some value. Let's say A is equal to this, B is equal to this, C is equals to this. Then write hyphen host function returned A, and then function returned B, and then function return C. Now let us try now. This is printing. Okay, these this is two are getting printed because I'm calling these two things without I mean directly it is printing, returning, and then returning it to a console. Now I'm assigning to A, and then by printing. First, it will not print anything because actually I'm not passing any value at all. So it is actually returning nothing, zero. Second, I'm assigning it to B, and then printing that it is 200. And then finally I'm assigning the C, and then assign here. Do math is actually function. I'm this function values assigned to a variable, and then I'm manipulating. Okay, so this is what the return, and you should have only one return. Okay, let's say here I return 100. Okay, something like that, and then I'm going to execute it again. Everything will be 100, means whenever we are typing one, there should be only one return in the whole function. And if I type one return, whatever after the return will not be executed. Okay, so return should be the last statement, and there should be only one return. Okay, let's try this one. Still this is not printing. Okay, even though we take this, now we are taking this and printing. Now it will print. This is printing actually, multiply. Okay, if I take this and then put it after return and then execute, it will not print. So the moral is return should be the last line of your function. So let us quickly recap what all the things we have seen so far. Today we started with the measure object. Measure object is will calculate the count, and then sum, and then minimum, maximum, average, and make sure you are doing something related to number. Don't try to do it something related to string. Okay, we see CPU as well as file size as an example. Selecting calculated value is nothing but fancy way, and single line will be able to give a proper, readable, customizable result for us. So that is where, and it is again hash table in a little bit fancy thing, and we know dollar underscore dot is ps item. And we started with get hyphen volume, just the normal drive letter size, and then we slowly developed one by one, and finally we come to this final one, and then we shown you what this exactly means, and we also broken into a meaningful way. So we said what all the reasons why we are doing this, and then we started with function. We declared the simple function without any argument, and we called that, and we called with a parameter. Okay, with a parameter is just a leaving a space, we need to do it, not no comma or let's say colon, all those things, or equals. Okay. And how to directly call, and how to call with the parameter name, right? Hyphen one name, number one, number two, all those things. And then how to assign a default value, we have seen that as well. And then how to declare the parameter inside, in spite of we do everything within these two brackets. Okay, that parameter mandatory position is nothing but the position of you don't have to worry about it, because it might be confusing, and that is also not required as of now. Okay, so we made it mandatory, not mandatory, and then we printed and we returned things, all those things. And that is all about the functions. That's pretty enough information to write any kind of function. Okay, so write some functions. I'll send you some task, and then let's see how it goes. And you you have already have almost more than enough tools to do all kind of things. And as I suggested, hope you already chose some project, and then you'll be ready to get my assistance to do that in your real life organization, and then let's do it. So being said that, thanks for your time, and we will be seeing in the Q&A session, and let's rock and roll. Thanks again.